and welcome to Wellness Live. My name is Dr. Olivia Moses, and this broadcast is brought to you by Loma University Health's Department of Risk Management. We are so excited to have you join us today for this session, and we are talking about a very important topic. As you know, if you're a longtime viewer, we talk about all things wellness here at Wellness Live, and today we are going to be talking about relationships. Now, relationships are a part of our wellness. Good communication, how we foster them, building our communities, and having good relationships with the people we love are all important to someone's health and wellness. So today we're going to be talking about the golden rule of communication, and we have a special guest. His name is Wagih Mikhail, and he has been at our organization for quite a long time, 35 years. And he is our director for patient relations and language services. So he is quite familiar with having difficult conversations and having good relationships with individuals who are actually, in many cases, having a really stressful time in their life. So while we listen to Wagih and listen to what he is educating us about having good relationships and the golden rule of communication, you have the ability to ask him questions live. So go ahead and type in the comments section any of your questions, and we will pose them during our question and answer session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Wagih Mikhail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moses. I'm extremely honored and privileged to be invited to Wellness Live program, and I appreciate what you leadership, Dr. Moses, and your team in this area here. Your program is very important to many people, and I also like to ask the Rev Media team for welcoming me to their studio here for this presentation. Communication, as Dr. Moses pointed to and introduced, is something very important to relationships. It is basically the air relationship breathes, and we cannot emphasize communication enough. So I'm hoping in the few minutes we're going to be together here, we will walk out of this session with some thoughts and renewed conviction and commitment to healthy communication, not only professionally, but also at home with friends and other settings. So with that in mind, I just like to go forward in the slide presentation here and talk a little bit about the points we're going to be discussing here, which is we're going to be emphasizing and talking about the essence of communication in the biblical framework as an introduction to what we're going to do. I feel like the Bible set a good framework for the principles, important commitments to communication that we need to have. Also, we'd like to talk about the influencers in communication and how we deal with that and how we can sort through influencers' messages to make sure that we are searching for facts and responding appropriately. And then we're going to talk about something that's very important to communication. And many times those two factors contribute to healthy communications, and sometimes when they don't exist, they contribute to weaker communication. And these two factors are respect and kindness. So with that, we like to talk about the framework, what the Bible says to us about communication and how the Bible guides the principle of communication. And I like to think that that really should be my mission statement personally in how I communicate with my kids, my grandkids, my friends, the people I work with, the people even I met randomly in this. James chapter 1, verse 19 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen." Please pay attention how many times in that verse the word listen will be repeated. Every time should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. By being patient and attentive listeners, here we go again, we can better understand the needs and concerns of others and communicate with them effectively. I think there is no better map road to communication to help us have healthy communication than to apply the principles included in this verse here. I certainly like to think I like to do that every day. I like to pray I can do that every day. And we're going to see the opportunities and the challenges to live that verse consistently. So with that, in the society and the times we live in right now, we notice that we are aware there are billions and billions of cell phones that exist out there, but research and science and surveys show that we have really not excelled in the area of communication. Those tools that are available to us, whether they are social media messaging or cell phone and all those things, did not enhance and make our communication healthier. And we're going to understand and see some of the reasons for that as we look at other points we're going to cover here today. And additionally, we are living in an age where we have this very persuasive time. We have a lot of messages that have eloquent words, descriptions, what seems to be facts. And we are just submerged in all kind of messages and that sometimes require us to be attentive to the facts in the message and know the truth in the message. And that requires us to listen carefully and attentively to what we're reading and what we're listening, and also apply that to the message that we are speaking ourselves. So with that in mind, we will go to see how communication and the center aspect of communication, if you remember what we talked about in the verse in James, it talked about listening a couple of times there. So the basic of communications, or the basics of communications, are listening, and then body language and listening, and speaking and listening. You see, we cannot take listening out of any part of communication. It has to be present in every step in the communication, every relationship we have. I like what one person wrote and said, General George Marshall said, the formula for handling people is, number one, is to listen to the other person's story. Number two, listen to the other person's story, full story, listen to the full story. And number three, listen to the other person's full story first. So he just put a lot of emphasis on listening here. And he packaged that with the understanding that every person that speaks to you, we have conversation with, typically there is a story in that conversation. And it is presumptuous to try to cut the conversation quickly with assumptions that I know how it will end or anything like that. Because listening to the full story, there's something beautiful, something wonderful. I'd just like to remind you about the book of Genesis, chapter 1. We see there that the first conversation that happened was between God and the universe that he created. It said 6 times that God spoke and it happened. And God spoke and it happened. And then at the end, we see that God judged that everything he spoke was good. That gives us the principles of communication, that it has to be building, constructive, beautiful, and hopefully we can see something good flourish and comes out of it. So we'll go forward here and look at some of the things that are important in communication, which is the clarity of the message we're sending. A friend of mine visited, was touring in a different country, and he was in his hotel room and tried to access the Wi-Fi and tried this and that, and with no success. So he called the help desk. The help desk said the password to the hotel Wi-Fi is 1 to 10. So he tried what he heard that the Wi-Fi password is, and still didn't work. So he called the hotel desk person again, and the person said, I'll come up to your room and help you. And when he came to the room, he walked in and he said, oh, here it is. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is different from 1 to 10, where the other person thought it's just 1 and then 2 and then 10. So the clarity of the message is certainly something that's very important and we need to pay attention to. The tone of voice is a huge problem in conversation. It can lead conversation to building relationships, to empathy and sympathy and caring, or it can create confrontational emotions that are not needed or not justified. Also, matching the feelings in the communication. We stress that a lot in the line of work, and we speak to people sometimes who are frustrated angry, discouraged, sad, worried, and it's very important for the listener, those situations, to match the feelings and show expression of empathy and care, and in the tone of voice and in the facial expressions also. With that, we go forward a little bit and we focus on the aspect of listening. And you will see the theme of listening repeated several times during this presentation and the time we're going to spend together, because I cannot emphasize enough in this presentation how important listening is. And many times the individuals we talk with, the patients, the families we speak with, and at the end of the conversation, after we listen to them and hear what they care to share with us, I will ask the question, how can we make that situation better? How can we rebuild the trust again? And they say, you already done that. I just needed someone to listen to me. I needed to be acknowledged. And that's so important. It's not only in the professional sense, but also in our relationships. Many times people are talking to each other and busy looking at the cell phone, or looking at the newspaper, or surfing channels on the TV. And that doesn't give anyone who's speaking the idea or the assurance that they being acknowledged or heard. Attention and listening is a gift, is a beautiful gift. Actually, probably the most precious gift that anybody will receive. And when we share it and give it to each other, we walk out of that experience all enriched and blessed from the experience we've had together. Also, some aspects of communication deal with the body language. And body language can say a lot. Sometimes people say what you say is not really what I'm seeing in your expressions or what I'm observing in what you're doing. And one thing is eye contact plays an important part. And just to show that I'm really tentative, I'm listening to the person who's talking to me, I'm giving them my full attention. I am not looking around in space trying to find something else to distract me from listening to the person who's speaking with me. Also, we listen with interest and care, which is basically, I really like to hear your story. You have something important that I am privileged and honored to hear and listen to. And I care to listen to you, and I care to see how I can help you or what you need from me in this situation. With respect to feelings, always the idea of empathy and sympathy plays an important part. My mother, who sadly passed away a few months ago, we've had some challenges with her health in the past year of her life. And many times I have people who will come and talk to me about their spouses or friends or family members who have been through similar experience to my mother. And after I listen to them and I just share some thoughts about what they express to me, and they know that I can relate, that builds strong bond and strong trust in the conversation experience we have together. And then important part is to always be alert to the prejudices and previous conceptions. When we are professionals, and even in social settings, many times right away the brain tells us that, oh, I have heard this before, I know what's coming, I know how this story is going to end, I know what question is going to come up. Let us try hard and focus on what the person is saying, and understand that that's a unique person who has a unique message for me, and it deserves my attention. And whether I've heard it before or not, this is a special opportunity for me to hear that person. So that's an important part that plays into the thinking of listening here. So I'd like to put this in front of you here. And when you think about the STAR, think about those few steps here. One is the signals showing your genuine interest in the conversation. Author, preacher, speaker, Charles Swindoll wrote this one time. He said at one point in his life, he was committed to too many projects, too many events, and it started to wear on him. And all of a sudden, that tension and that attention to other things and the stress he was going through, it started to filter into his family. And one day his daughter, Colleen came to speak with him, and she was speaking in a hurry. And he said to her, honey, you don't need to speak in a hurry. Speak slowly. And she said, Dad, so you need to listen slowly then. So the interest in the conversation begins with us listening, begins with us giving that attentive smile, that smile that tells the person that I am really privileged, lucky, happy, fortunate to be here in this conversation with you. Think of the person's feeling, think of what they're trying to communicate. It is not only the words that are being said or the facts or the numbers. There are emotions generated behind or there in the background behind any conversation. Ask questions to understand clearly. Questions many times show the interest that I really want to get it right. Can you clarify this point for me? Is this what you meant? If that's where you were, if that's the time this happened. Those are all important to the conversation and to the assurance that I'm listening and I'm following. And also rephrase what you hear. So that's what I understand from what I learned from you at this session. I am glad we talked. I'm glad we had this opportunity. You can say that to your child, you can say it to your spouse, you can say it to your siblings. And trust me, when communication is strong and healthy, something beautiful happens in the relationship that doesn't exist without it. So going forward from here, we will look at tension and tension alerts that happen in communication. And we are in a society and times where people are, some extent, are stressed, frustrated, whether it is the economy, whether it is kids in school, whether having a family member who's sick or ill, projects at work I need to meet deadlines for. And tension sometimes has a way of subtly coming into the conversation and in effect just hurts or weakens the conversation. So some of the tips or things I noted that are helpful in those situations is to watch for the unspoken and subtle messages I'm generating in the conversation. Do I look like I am really not here in this situation? Do I need to explain to someone that I had a long day? I had insomnia sleeping last night, and that's affecting my ability to be in the conversation, to be present. But I'm going to do my best to be there because I know you have something important you want to share with me. Also, the body language and how we present that, how I show positiveness in the environment there. People go to great extent, you open the door, they welcome the person, they pull a chair for the person that wants to speak with them. They share gratitude and thanks at the end of the conversation. All those things cement that conversation is something that is valuable to you, something you benefited from, as much as it was important for the person who spoke with you to share that experience with you. With that, we can, I think we're coming into the 10 minutes mark here. I am not sure if this is a good place to stop, Dr. Bozis, or I can continue if you want.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Wagih. This is excellent. So we will ask some of the questions. Just want to remind our audience, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. So Wagih, one of the questions that we have is, when it comes to listening, you've talked a lot about that. And there was something I heard a long time ago, which I loved, that basically said that we're becoming a society that listens to respond instead of listening to understand. And I loved that concept. So what happens when we don't listen? What are some of the telltale signs that we're not listening in a conversation?
That's a very good question, Dr. Moses. I appreciate you emphasizing that here. I'd like to share just a bit of a funny story here of a husband that thought that his wife is not listening to him as he thought he likes her too. So he went to a counselor, and the counselor told him of a certain plan to follow. And he went home and he tried to apply this plan. So he opened the door and got into the house and yelled loud, and he said, honey, I'm home. What's for dinner tonight? No response. So he did what the counselor told him, walked a few steps, got a little closer, repeated the question, honey, I'm home. What's for dinner tonight? Still no response. He got close within an ear distance from her and said, honey, I'm home. What's for dinner tonight? She looked at him with that shocking look in her eyes and said, for the third time, I'm telling you, we're having lentil soup tonight. So we can see that communication is how important it is. And what it does is, I'd like to share this. I read this from Robert Heron, who said that listening requires a choice of where I place my attention. To tune into my partner, I must first choose to put away all that will divide my attention. That might mean laying down the newspaper, moving away from the dishes in the sink, putting down the book I'm reading, setting aside my projects. There's nothing worth sacrificing for not listening. And when we don't listen, the damage it does it to the trust. Because the person, once they are not listened to once or twice or three times, they come to that feeling or conclusion inside their minds or heart, right or wrong, that I'm not important to that person, that I'm not going to get listened to. So what is the point? So I will bottle my feelings. I will not share it with the person that I need to share it with. And that is harmful, damaging to the relationship, and damaging, most importantly, to the trust, which is something we're going to be talking about shortly.
When someone is having a conversation and it's starting to escalate, and a person starts repeating themselves and trying to, say the same thing over and attacking with the same point, is that a point where the listener should probably say they don't think I'm hearing them? What should happen if you're that person?
If I'm that person and I've been experiencing that, I'll just go back and just say, I really want to make sure that I appreciate and listen and benefit from what you want to share with me. If I give you the impression or the inclination or the idea that I'm not listening to you, I really apologize for that, because that was not my intention at all. And let us start again. Let us give it a chance, and let us go over what you said one more time. And to make sure that the other person trusts that my message is coming from an honest heart, I would say, this is what I listened to so far. This is what I got, and that's where we stop. What have I missed at this point? And if I missed anything, sometimes I got the whole message, and the person will say, oh, I am sorry, I accused you wrongly, or I misunderstood. That's you understood everything, you got the whole message. And sometimes you say, well, there are one or 2 points that you were left in the conversation. But just kind of being vulnerable, being open to give and take in the situation plays a huge part in building the trust and setting the tone of the conversation on the right track.
The next question is actually about tone. And you mentioned tone, and I think that's, a very important aspect to communication, because you could be using the words I love you, but if you're yelling and really aggressive with it, the message is kind of lost. So this question is, how do I become more aware of my tone? Because I have been told that my tone confuses people.
I will find out from the person who gave me that message. I raised up 2 kids, and they are both different. And how I speak to one is not the way that it worked for the other. And I learned late in life to ask the question, how would you have loved me to say this differently? How would I have said, what kind of tone of voice I could have used that would have made you feel that I mean what I'm saying, that I love you, I mean when I say that I appreciate you helping with the housework or this or that. And sometimes those clues are very helpful and needed. Also, something that's very important is always have trusted friend in church, at work, wherever. That trusted friend you can speak with, and they can give you honest, objective opinions and ideas about where you are in your journey with communication. And that's very important and huge. I think when we do that, we really show true, honest, sincere commitment to communication. And even when people know that we're trying that hard to improve, they give us a lot of credit for that, and it helps.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Wagih. Why don't we get to the second half of your presentation?
Thank you. So we get into the subject of self-confidence here. Self-confidence plays an important part, and sometimes that happens or gets affected when sometimes when we are tired, sometimes when we are not sure of our values. And for that part of it, I like to suggest, recommend, share with you what I do in that area to help me. I go back to the verse we read in the book of James, and I read that over again. I make that verse my guiding light to make sure that I'm doing my communication in a way that is productive, the way that's constructive, helpful, positive. And also, it keeps me honest and accountable, first of all, to God and to myself, and how I am handling that, dealing with that. Also, another thing that happens in communication that seems to be a barrier or a challenge is unexpected expectations or unrealistic expectations. Those come many times because one person was not prepared or was not listening long enough or understanding or ignored to understand for a long time the needs of the other person. And then all of a sudden they are asked or expected to do 10 million things that if they paid attention to early on, would not have been that much of a surprise to them. Trust is a big thing. Building trust is the whole essence of a relationship. And we're going to go through a formula here shortly that hopefully will give us a framework, an idea, or a few steps of how we can build the trust in the relationship. Biases, because this happened before, or because I feel that way about this subject, or I am affiliated with this political party and not this political party, all those things. Really, we put a lot of emphasis and value on them that sometimes they don't deserve and they are not really beneficial. What is important is the human being I'm interacting with, the relationship I have with that person. That's really something valuable, and we cannot put a price on. And again, the stereotyping that happens a lot in communication, we see that many times, and we see that that always leads to misunderstanding, leads to unhelpful conclusions, leads to extra work that's probably not needed or necessary. So with that, we will look at some other things coming in the next slide here to help us focus on that. The value, what are my values? Do you have a mission statement that you wrote down what your values are? I have one that I did approximately maybe 20, 22 years ago, and I still have it with my poor handwriting, and I look at it frequently and see how much I deviated from what I committed myself to, and if I still in some areas or not, and if I need to add some new values. That's huge and important, because when the core of our beliefs, our convictions is strong, like we say, the core physically, when we go to the gym and work out and all that stuff, it keeps us strong, it keeps us balanced in communication experience. And whatever type of conversation or communication we are in, that strength that we draw on from our convictions, our values, keeps us steady and focused and balanced, and doesn't make us unbalanced because of what we think we're hearing is not pleasant, or the emotions or anything like that. We go forward from here and we see that some conversation have that tone of voice in them. It is my way or the highway. And one thing I use or we practice on those situations, and I learned too, is find in the communication where you agree. Sometimes patients will come and they have concerns and complaints about their experience. And after I listen to them appropriately, I'll say, you are here because you came to Loma Linda because you like to have the best care. And I work in Loma Linda because I am committed to supporting the best care. So we are in the same boat here. Let us work from that agreement to move forward to a better experience for you. And from there, we invest in the trust. Here's the formula for the trust that I'd like to share with you. Hopefully it will be helpful. You can add or modify it any way you want for your own personal style. But speaking truth, the care, the commitment, the sincerity, you put all together in any conversation. You have trust just being increasing all the time. Every time you walk into a conversation with a person with both things, your trust bank account just increasing and multiplying all the time. I guarantee you that this formula has never failed me yet in my 35 years. And we look here at some of the aspects of how we can work together to have open mind. An open mind always leads to acceptance and not having any sort of prejudice, whether in any form or fashion. Those things really are hurtful and not helpful. And sometimes they creep unconsciously into our thinking and our conversation. And we need to be alert to those things, because they have a way of sneaking in, and we don't realize until way later in the conversation or in the experience. And sometimes the damage is done, and we need to work our way back and explain what happened and address it. And then tolerance is certainly something that's so important in conversation, because we all love nothing more to have the whole world agree with us. But there are no two people in this world who are alike. So that's not a realistic expectation. And it's good to have tolerance for different point of views, different way of saying things, different styles of conversation and emotions. All those are important, and we're just given the privilege of being part of that experience. And here is another idea that I'd like to share with you that really plays a huge part in anchoring the concept of kindness and respect in conversation. I mentioned early on that in Genesis, God spoke 6 times about creation. But also in Genesis, God said that he created man and woman in his image. I always think about that and I say, well, that person I'm talking with, I am helping, I'm listening to, that's God's image. How profound is that? That's huge, profound experience to show respect, to show kindness, because that's something that God touched, formulated, he thought, and I am having the privilege and having this holy experience to be with that person, a conversation experience that hopefully we will end up from it benefiting ourselves, growing, and hopefully we'll have a positive relationship from that situation. So that image concept is, along with James 1, they are really fundamental to the concept of kindness and respect and listening and conversation. Helpful feedback is always good to share. And sometimes people talk to me that I'm tired of just explaining myself. Well, you know, if you explain yourself a million times, yes, you can be tired. Sometimes we need to explain it again. Sometimes not everybody gets it as quick as we like them to. And sometimes people just are maybe tired or just cannot relate exactly to how you said it the first time. And it helps to repeat it again in a different way so the understanding will be there. Speaking is creating understanding. You're creating understanding for yourself and understanding for the other person, the listener too. So we love the truth and always want to make sure the truth is always expressed in love. And considered communication is a huge part of everything we do in healthcare. And not only that, even at home with the kids, with the spouse, with the girlfriend, boyfriend, with the neighbors. I remember one time my neighbor was gone and I left the trash can outside and I just said I'll just roll them into his backyard and all those things. And he came back and he put 1 + 1 and he came up with a big package of sweets and all those things. Everybody knows that I have a sweet tooth, and he just thanked me for doing this. So that's how people appreciate and value when they are thought of and considered. And obviously, that's in the core of our beliefs in our hearts and the way we're created in the image of God to be kind and considerate and respectful of each other. And kindness is defined as being generous, being helpful, being caring for people. And certainly those are the crown jewel of conversation, of any communication experience. And we're just gonna move a little bit here to talk about influencers. We know about influencers in social media nowadays. We have them everywhere we look. And I'd like to challenge myself and challenge anyone who wants to be part of this, that we become communication influencers. We become empathetic, friendly, patient, pleasant, present goodness and kindness. Those are not soft values. Those are really important, precious values that will change. And science and research shows that when we practice those values, it helps us health-wise, and it creates and generates better atmosphere and healthy atmosphere with those we communicate and deal with. So intentionality and kindness, being generous and listening, all those are important. And we go forward from here to the next slide. In every crowd, there are going to be diminishers, and there are also illuminators. Diminishers make people feel small, unseen. They see other people as things to be used, not persons to be befriended. They stereotype and ignore. They are also involved with themselves, that other people are just not on their radar screen. If we go to the next slide, we'll see the opposite of that, which is illuminators. And illuminators are basically the people that, on the other hand, have persistent curiosity about other people. I like to be a person like that. They have been trained or have trained themselves in the craft of understanding others. They know what to look for and how to ask the right question at the right time. They shine brightness when they care for other people and make themselves and make other people feel bigger, deeper, respected, and let up. I like to be that kind of person. I hope I always can live up to being a illuminator in all my conversations. Courage can be hidden virtue. Faith can be personal. Goodness is the kind of character trait, however, that cannot be practiced alone. Goodness requires public posture. To be good, you have to be good to someone else. And most essential of all, perhaps, to the nature of goodness is the fact that not to choose, not to get involved, not to decide, not to bother, is the most serious choice of all we can make. And I hope we make choices for goodness and in every experience we have. And then the truth of being human is gratitude. If I can practice gratitude in every conversation and look at it as a gift and a blessing, that would be amazing. The secret of existence is appreciation. Its significance is revealed in reciprocity. Mankind will not die for lack of information. It may perish for lack of appreciation. And I hope at the end of the time we've had together today, this precious time, I hope we can walk out of here and just look at every opportunity to have conversation, to communicate as a gift, special gift that we can be grateful for.
Well, Wagih, thank you so much. This has been such a useful conversation because communication does affect every part of our life. Let's get to, I think we only have time for one question. This comes from YouTube and it says, how to handle people who derails a conversation by telling/focusing about a totally different topic instead of staying on topic and might bring up the past, maybe, those kinds of things, I think.
Yeah.
Referencing.
And that definitely happens a lot because of the distractions around us and the many things that pull in our attention. And one thing that I've heard from friends and others that said that was helpful is when a person changes the subject from talking about budget to talking about the basketball game last night. I just said, oh, you watched the basketball game last night. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that we finish talking about budget here. And then if we can, after we talk about that, we can talk about the sports, we can talk about any other subject you want to have a chance to talk to me about. I'll be happy to do that. I just want to make sure that we cover this point first. I think that will be a good way to bring the conversation back on track to what essentially it was planned for.
Well, thank you so much, Wagih. One of the things that I'm taking from your presentation today is that number one, we have to decide to have good relationships. And if we decide to have good relationships, we do have to be an active participant in every conversation we have with listening and body language. It's an active decision that we make going into these types of conversations. Well, thank you so much again for your time. And thank you all for joining us for another Wellness Live session. I want to invite you again to next month's session as well. So without further ado, I want to bid you a good day. Have a wonderful day and have good conversations. My name is Dr.